am an immigration attorney, so it was great to hear from Rachel, because sometimes as an attorney you get down in the weeds and you miss the big picture. But I thought I'd come here today and talk about what everyone wants to talk to me at cocktail parties about, which is, why don't they just fill out the paperwork? I don't believe in supporting criminals. And this is my favorite one. Why would you need an attorney to come to this country? Why do they pay you? So I think it helps in answering those questions to know a little bit about the law right now and what it looks like, what's practically happening for people that need to come to the United States, want to come to the United States, whether it's to be with a family member, to be with an employer, or because they're fleeing persecution in some way. So, you know, who's heard that phrase, we have a broken immigration system, right? We've all heard it. So is it really broken? It's really broken. And I think I'll tell you a few things and you might be surprised. But I hope they stick with you so that the next time you get those questions, you'll have some ammunition. There's a bunch of categories of immigration. I'll start with family, because I think it's right now one of the harshest categories we have. And really it boils down to the incredibly long waiting times that we have for people that want to bring in their family members. And I can just give you some examples of it. Let's say I'm a US citizen and my dear sister is in the Philippines and I want to bring her over, and as soon as I get my citizenship, I start that process because I need her, I want her to help with my kids, I just need her support. So my sister's going to come over in about 25 years. We're probably going to be retired by then, and my kids are definitely out of the house. But that's what it would take. That's what it would take. It would take me becoming a citizen on day one, filing the paperwork to sponsor her, and her waiting out for 25 years abroad. But let's say, okay, sister, sister, do your own thing. I can't help you. What about my son? Let's say I have my son, and I need my son because we want our sons and daughters to be with us. And let's say it's from, let's say a friendly country. Let's say someplace in Europe, right? Norway, let's say Norway. So I want to bring my son over, and I filed the paperwork right away. And he's not married, which is good. It's going to take him 7 years to join me in the United States. 7 years. What if he makes the mistake of getting married? His wait time is going to double. 13 years to join his mom in the United States. Let's say he's from Mexico. Any guesses? 23 years right now. 23 years that the son and his mother cannot have any certainty in being with each other in the United States. Easier example, maybe, a little shorter. Let's say I get that green card. So when you're going through the immigration process, you first get a temporary visa, maybe, or you get a green card. And it takes you a while then to get citizenship. But the green card is that first step to get here permanently. So let's say, typical of my client, a physician comes over, he gets that green card, and then he gets married the next year, and his wife is in, let's say his wife is in Canada. It's going to take them 2 years to be together. 2 years. So, it kind of answers the question, I think, for me of, well, why don't they just do it legally? These are long, long separations. And in the meantime, there's no way you can be guaranteed of getting even a visitor visa to be with each other in the United States during that time. I work primarily with companies, so I am the person that you call when you need a work visa for, highly skilled researcher, scientist, doctor. Big companies need to send their executives around. I'm the person they call. Seems like the government would be pretty open to that, right? These are highly trained, degreed professionals. But surprisingly, the categories and the ability to get even these very highly educated, skilled people is incredibly limited. The most common work visa you have right now is called an H-1B work visa. I don't know if anyone's ever heard of this. This is the workhorse of the U.S. work visa categories. You have to have a degree, you have to have a sponsor, an employer sponsor. They have to spend thousands of dollars to get you over here on that visa. And there's only a limited amount each year. You get 1 day to apply, April 1st. Your name gets put in a lottery, and you got less than a 50% chance of getting one of those spots. These are for degreed professionals with U.S. employers that are in need of their services and willing to spend thousands of dollars to bring them here. And it's a no-go for more than half of them. The other thing, and I think this is especially relevant here in Wisconsin, is there really aren't categories out there for people in the trades or people that don't have degrees. And this strikes a lot of industries very hard. When we see the big construction projects come up, suddenly we need to build something. Hurricane Katrina was a good example. We needed a lot of labor. Could we bring people in from abroad? Not really. Not really. No degrees, no category. Dairy really suffers from this. We need milkers. You cannot, speak to any dairy farmer out there. They cannot keep milkers in their barns, and so they don't take vacations. They count on their family members to milk those cows, and yet there are very skilled dairy workers, Russia, Mexico, South America, that'd be more than happy to take those jobs. There's absolutely no visa category, even if that dairy farmer wanted to invest the money, even if they had the person in mind. So you just can't do it. And that's why we see 75% plus of dairy workers are undocumented immigrants. They are running our dairy industry, and they are here without status. So it's devastating and short-sighted, in my opinion, that we don't have categories that are flexible and nimble enough to deal with what we as a community need and as an economy need. That was always my good argument for my very conservative dad. Dad, it's good for business. It's really good for business to be able to bring people in when companies need them. The other thing to know, with Trump taking over the immigration agencies, we've seen incredible pushback, denial rates across the board, even for highly skilled employer categories. So it was hard to begin with, and now it's harder. And we're still seeing increasing wait times for green cards, even in the employment category. I deal a lot with Indian nationals, and because of the backlogs there, you may have a PhD researcher, maybe your family practice physician who is waiting a minimum of 12 years for their green card. And that's after the employer has filed all the paperwork. That's after they've done everything perfectly, everything legally. That's 12 years thinking about if their son or daughter is going to age out and have to go back to their home country. 12 years thinking about whether or not they should buy some real estate. So it's surprising, and it's again, unfortunate. The other thing I wanted to mention is why we get in a situation where even if you want to fix your status, so even if you have that employer that wants to help you out, why don't more people do it? Why are we having more and more undocumented? And I get this call a lot. A company will call me and say, I've got this great worker. I will do anything to get him status, anything. And I'll say, well, how long have they been without status? About 1.5 years. And I have to tell them, you can't do it. You can't do it because that person cannot fix his status without leaving the country. And the day they leave the country, they are barred from coming back for 10 years. 10 years. So it's a no-go. So people don't want to fix it, their family wants to fix it, and it's just not a possibility. kind of a downer. But I want to keep want to help people in the greatest need. Are we helping them? What's going on with asylum right now? I don't deal with asylum a lot except to monitor the numbers. And so just so you have a sense of it, people fleeing prosecution, people in fear of their lives. They're coming in, not much with them, they're applying for asylum. We granted less than 30% of asylum applications last year. Doesn't sound that bad, but if you look at particular states and courts, it's abysmal. Atlanta courts, more than 95% of asylum cases were denied last year. More than 95%. Nope, you're going home. And this is really unfortunate given the crisis we're seeing with Central America and the children and the mothers coming up fleeing that violence. A few other things. So that's kind of what's happening with the categories, but just generally I wanted to give you a sense of how the administration is pushing down some of the rhetoric. Did that election rhetoric really roll out? It did. Again, I mentioned before we're seeing a huge increase in denials, pushbacks on cases. We're continuing to see a big increase in the use of private prisons and detention over release. In the past, in other administrations, your administration can decide, okay, we see you violated our law here. We're going to have you check in every few months. Just, keep an eye on you. They have that choice. They also have the choice to put you into detention. In certain situations, they have the choice to put you on a plane. So we are seeing a shift from that, okay, please check in with us every few months. We understand you have U.S. citizen children that you need to take care of. We're seeing a shift away from that into a shift to being put in removal proceedings. And unfortunately, the prioritization that we saw under President Obama, which was we're going to only put the criminal aliens into detention, is really gone. So without prioritization, you have the mother of the child, the U.S. citizen child, just as vulnerable as the mother who's committed, several aggravated felonies. So it's the fear that Rachel mentioned is real and profound, and even in what I would consider a very sheltered corporate immigration world, you cannot avoid it. You cannot avoid it. I do a pro bono clinic at METC, and more than half of my discussions are usually a mom in front of me in tears saying, "Are you sure there's nothing you can do for me? And are you sure I'm as vulnerable as I heard that I am?" And the answer is yes. So, what's the end game here? What are we looking at? We are, I think, facing a huge loss of skilled labor. We need labor. Our workforce is not keeping up with what we need it to be. We need to be able to bring people in. We are, frankly, losing really great people to other countries. I take calls a lot from clients, and I said, well, we got this great candidate. He's thinking of Australia. Or I think we're going to lose him to Canada. Like this with shock in their voice, but it's not shocking anymore. It's not shocking. The family separation, that's going to get worse until it gets better. We need some laws to change. We're seeing our taxes, our resources being shifted into areas that I think everyone in this room would agree we have a lot better things to do with our money. And frankly, I think what we're seeing is our loss as a nation of immigrants. Just this year, the USCIS, which is the immigration agency, they literally removed that we're a nation of immigrants from their mission statement. So the agency that's tasked with helping people get their green cards, helping people get their work visas, is no longer standing behind the mission that we're a nation of immigrants. So, a little food for thought as you go into those conversations. Thanks for having me.